always, I want to preface by saying I'm not a basketball expert. I'm just a fan who's naturally obsessed. And today we're going to talk about, briefly, because I have a few things I need to take care of before the games start, and I'm going to be 100% available for these games. Game 7. 2 words that can either be the most beautiful words you could hear as a basketball fan, or if you're a fan of a team playing in the Game 7, 2 words that scare the living hell out of you. And it's that way because, as I've said on a couple different occasions, Game 7, literally anything can happen. Anything. Especially when the best player on the floor plays for the opposing team. Anything can happen. We have the Game 7 between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. Boston's favored as of right now. Last time I checked anyways, which was only 20-30 minutes ago, by 5 points. They're at home. They just played a very good game in Milwaukee. It's understandable why they'd be favored. I've said all along, I think what it's going to come down to is who has the best player, which is why I'm picking Milwaukee. I think it's going to be close to, if not a little over, a double-digit lead for Boston at halftime, which we've seen on a pretty regular basis throughout this series. Boston, when they fired on all cylinders, they take a pretty decent halftime lead. But the biggest problem for Boston thus far throughout this series has been maintaining those leads. And they've either lost the games or they've allowed Milwaukee to come back to some sort of margin. I thought in Game 6 we were on the verge of that happening again, but thankfully that Boston defense buckled down and they were able to win the game. As of right now, I'm hearing Chris Middleton is not going to play, and I've heard Robert Williams is questionable. Those are 2 huge factors because I think it's clear as day in this series specifically, with Grayson Allen playing as bad as he's playing, they miss Chris Middleton. They have Chris Middleton in this series. I think it's over in 6 like I had originally predicted. I just thought, though, that Giannis would be Giannis, and to a certain extent he definitely has. I mean, he had a monster game in the Game 6 loss. Monster game. But they're doing a very good job, for the most part, of neutralizing what's around him. Similar to what the Phoenix Suns have been able to do at home. Not on the road, but at home against the Dallas Mavericks. But in Milwaukee versus Boston, I just really think that it's going to come down to who has the best player. And as I've said all along, I love Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm not a Bucks fan because, the Bucks beat my Suns in the finals last year, but I love Giannis Antetokounmpo, so I'd be very happy for him to see him advance to defend his title. But I'm also a fan of this Boston Celtics team. I asked the question in my last video, how can you not be a fan of the team? And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's easy not to be a fan of this team. They flop, they fish for whistles, blah, blah. You know what? I'm not going to argue that. I've watched a lot of this team, definitely not as much as some other teams around the NBA, because being on the West Coast, you don't get quite as many East Coast basketball games in the night slot, unless they're on the West Coast. But I've watched a lot of this basketball team, and I think what they're doing, whether you like it or not, you don't have to like it, but it's kind of smart if you think about it. It's part of the game plan. You have to neutralize Giannis Antetokounmpo, because one of my viewers very fairly brought up the point because I brought up the point, Giannis gets away with quite a bit, gets the benefit of the whistle, this and that. And it's such a good point. Referees in the playoffs, for the most part, aren't gonna discipline aggressiveness. And it's true. It's very true. It's playoff basketball. So when you know you have the best player in the world on the opposite end of the court, you have to come up with some sort of strategy that you think is going to keep you in the game when he goes off for 40 and 20 like we just saw. You know what I mean? So if you're not a fan with it, if you're not a fan of it, you're not a fan of it. That's fair. I'm not going to judge you for it, but I'm a fan of this Boston Celtics team. I hope they win. I don't think they're going to win, but I hope they win. And if Milwaukee does win, well-deserved, well-earned, and I think the winner of this series is representing the East in the NBA Finals. And then we go to the West, Game 7, Phoenix Suns, Dallas Mavericks. You guys already know. I mean, look, I'm representing already early this morning. Tale of two different teams when it comes to home and away. Phoenix Suns have been absolutely dominant. You know, when the Suns have been favored by one possession, it's been when they're in Dallas. They've only been the underdog one game this series. Of course, they lost it. And then the two other times they were favored by one possession, they lost in blowouts in Dallas. But then at home they've been favored by more than one possession all three games, all four including today, because as of right now, they're a 6.5 point favorite and a 3-1 favorite to win this game. That's pretty significant. And all games being favored by more than one possession, they've been blowouts. That game one, I believe the Suns only won by 10 points, but that game was not as close as a 10-point margin of victory would indicate. That game was it was an ass kicking. I don't know any other way to say it. So I'm very confident that the Suns are going to get it done today. But as I said, and I'm guilty of taking this Dallas team for granted. Like I said, Jason Kidd has done a phenomenal job in this series, and I think he's outcoached Monty Williams. And having the best player on the opposite end of the court, it's a little intimidating. A guy who has Game 7 experience. Granted, he lost, but he has the experience. There's only two players on this team. I'm sorry, 3 players on this team that have Game 7 experience. Chris Paul, Jay Crowder, and Landry Shamet. Only 3 guys that have Game 7 experience. So, I expect this game to be very close throughout the first half, like we've seen in just about every other game other than this last game, of course. But second half, ruckus Phoenix crowd, role players playing their best basketball at home. I think the Suns get it done, and they get it done by double digits. And it's the same thing as the series before. I think the winner of this series, regardless of it being Phoenix or Dallas, is who represents the West in the NBA Finals. So I think the winners of these 2 games today are going to play each other in the NBA Finals. That's my prediction. And of course, guys, I will be back with you following each game today, give you my thoughts, my reaction, and we'll see where you guys are at too. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks, guys.